Welcome to the Benjitucker.fit podcast. I'm your host, Coach Benji, with my co-host, Coach Chris, and together we've helped over 100 men build the body of their dreams. Today, we talked about cardio versus resistance training. I think everyone listening to this, if they've listened to our prior stuff, knows what team we're on, but we're going to get into all the details. And obviously, we're proponents of resistance training over cardio, really based on any of the goals you have. We're not someone that's like, you should never do cardio because it's so bad for you. We would never be as stupid to say that. But, typically the people we're working with, they just want to look better, generally, right? Like everyone's why is going to be a little different, but typically they want to look better. And usually that entails losing fat. And if you're talking about the benefits of cardio versus the benefits of just not being as fat, it would be better instead of just spinning your wheels, doing lots of cardio and not getting a result. If you were comparing in theory to do no cardio and not be fat, right? So I think we get into that just in terms of maybe going over the pros and cons of just cardio as an approach without even including resistance training, and then the pros and cons of resistance training without mention of cardio, and then we could kind of merge them together and see what that looks like practically.
Yeah, I think the starting point would be understanding what cardio and resistance training are. So I'll define both of them pretty quickly. So for those who don't know, cardio or cardiovascular training is basically just training the heart to be more efficient at, basically just pumping blood better and more efficiently throughout the body, right?
Absolutely.
Resistance training is you're training your body to go against literal resistance, the anaerobic versus aerobic training. But you're trying to train the muscles to be going a certain way. So you also want to be getting stronger over time with certain resistances, but that you're training specifically your heart in a different way where it's less reps or less time overall, right? You have cardiovascular training that's technically different in different categories.
Yeah. So
cardiovascular training has basically like 3 major levels of it, and it's low intensity, moderate intensity, and high intensity interval training. But the ones that we're talking about in this case will be on the opposite side. So it's low intensity, steady state cardio, which is what you think of as like your jogging, your biking, cycling, anything where you can do at a very low pace. So that's the one we're really talking about. And resistance training doesn't have to be the extreme. It's just that you're lifting weights, but most likely you're not lifting over 20 reps, which means the total time that you're actually working is going to be most likely less than 2 minutes total in that set.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think typically when we're talking about what cardio looks like at the gym is that you have 15 people on the treadmills all at once, jogging for 30 minutes to an hour, doing that a few times a week, and that being their main approach to getting down or maintaining the body fat that they're aiming to get. But the big commonality that we've seemed to notice working at gyms for combined, 15 years is that the people who are usually on the treadmill, they either one have massive fluctuations in weight gain or weight loss, or they just are still fat. How common is it? It seems very paradoxical, but how common is it to see a dude who's like 50 pounds overweight on the treadmill, and then 6 months later see the same guy 50 pounds overweight on the treadmill, and then you're just kicking yourself because you're like, I wish this guy would, have the, be able to take the first step of working with a trainer or engaging in a better resistance training program. But it's tough because some of those people, they just don't want to. Like they think that what they're doing is going to work, but it's a little bit of insanity because they keep just spinning their wheels. Mm-hmm. So maybe we can go a little bit into, I guess, cardio first and just the overall thought process that people have, how maybe the media plays into it as well, as like cardio is the way to achieve your dream body.
Yeah, it started off with a book called Running. I forgot who it's by, so I'll probably clip it right here.
You're like in 1902.
But it was in the 70s, and it was a big, big rush of people with running because a couple studies did come out citing that running was one of the best things you could do for just general health, and is also now ingrained in our medical system. So now when doctors, at least when I was growing up from the 90s to 2000s, was prescribing running as the main source of exercise for anything related to medical issues, over being overweight. Like that was the medical prescription from a doctor. It is now changing because of all the research that's coming out. And obviously we have way more research on resistance training being better than cardio for a lot of ailments in the world today. But cardio is still the main exercise that people think of when they're trying to lose weight, burn fat, look better. And let me just say this now, it generally is not. And here's why. When you do cardio, right, you're training your heart to be more efficient, better with oxygen and being better at utilizing more blood in the body so you're able to go longer. That's basically the intent of, especially low intensity steady state cardio is what we call it. We're just basically thinking about like running at a certain pace for an hour. Okay, so if you have the same hour of that versus training, obviously I would choose training. The issue with all this is if you have two people, twins, and one person started off running, right, and they did it an hour every single day, by end of week 12 or 3 months later, that his total maintenance calories would actually drop because you got more efficient with that exercise, because that's the signal you're telling your body.
Like your body gets better at burning calories, essentially.
Yeah, and then also when you stop running, that means your maintenance actually has gone down, right? Because you're averaging. Because think of it this way: let's say you're doing 2,000 calories, and that's your maintenance, but that includes running, right? So once you stop running, now it's down to most likely around 1,500. I'm just giving you arbitrary numbers. That's a massive issue, because then once you stop, that means you also ate 500 calories less that day. And most people aren't smart enough, or at least don't know enough to be able to do that. Whereas if you're on the opposite side, which Benji will get into, that's where you're able to, you don't have to necessarily do cardio. You can probably just walk and get your steps in. But you're able to put on muscle in those same 12 weeks and burn more calories at rest. In this exact case, this person's probably burning 1,700 calories every single day now because they have put on more mass, which means that you're heavier. Basically, you're heavier walking around, and also it's more taxing to have more muscle on your body than it is just to run, because your heart muscle is the only thing that's really working in that
regard. Absolutely. I'd also say with cardio, just to sum up what you were saying a little bit also, is that it pretty much sounds like, and what we've noticed is that in order to get more result out of it, you have to, just like anything, to be fair, you have to give your body more of a stimulus. But the difference of cardio is that you have to spend so much more time doing it. So in the gym, if you are spending 2 hours a week lifting, you could do that for a while and get sustained results. Whereas with running, if once you hit that point where your maintenance calories lower, well, now you have to run another 30 minutes this week, and then the next week another 30 minutes on top of that. And it's when you see these people who are at these kind of boutique studios and they've lost weight, but then they hit a plateau and they're already going like 4 times a week doing these like 45-minute classes, and they don't know what else to do. They're like, I'm not eating that much anymore. I'm moving so much. What's going on? That's a big problem. And then I'm sure people wonder that are listening to this, well, how come, athletes run all the time? They're in shape. It's like, well, not only is their nutrition right, and they probably have trainers and all these things. It's like, that's their job though. Their job is to be running and moving nonstop for hours on end every day. Your job is probably you sit at a desk. You probably don't have time to go to the soccer field 4 hours a day to just keep burning calories. And guess what? When a lot of those people, they just stop for whatever reason, whether they retire or whatever it is, if they don't keep their training in, they just get fat. So it's not a sustainable thing for someone who's just sitting at a desk. So with resistance training, the difference is that when you build muscle, each pound of muscle absolutely does burn more calories. I know that there's a big debate of, is it that much more? Is it this? Is that? But it's a lot more demanding to keep up, like you said. So not only do you need to eat a little more in order to preserve the muscle, but also just when you're walking and doing any sort of thing like that, you'll be burning more calories than if you didn't have that muscle on your frame as well, because that muscle is essentially extra weight that you're moving when you're going on a walk. So if I were to go on a walk with no muscle and I had a backpack with 10 pounds in it, I'm moving and I'm burning more calories because of that. But if I were to go on a walk with just 10 pounds more muscle, it's the same effect. So right there, it instantly is helping me burn more calories. So a much more preferred thing to do would be to build more muscle because when you're building more muscle, your metabolism is higher. And then as you're cutting down in weight through proper nutrition and through energy expenditure of just, maybe getting 8 to 10,000 steps a day, you're able to preserve that muscle. And when you preserve that muscle, you don't have to starve yourself to keep losing weight because your metabolism is not adapting as quick. Keeping the muscle allows you to not have to eat significantly less. It lets you eat more while still losing weight. Whereas when you're doing just cardio, you're losing muscle at the same time. So you have to eat less and less and do more and more cardio. So it's really just this loop that shoots yourself in the foot. Whereas with resistance training, if you follow that along with a good nutrition protocol, and if you choose your poison of walking more steps, I think it's absolutely more beneficial.
I think there's more people that do go to the gym and just go on the treadmills. That's like the first thing that gets taken up right away at prime time. And if you're the person that's always doing cardio, just you're doing exercise, which is amazing, but you're going right to the cardio machine or the treadmills, and you have the same 1 hour that day to do something in the gym, I urge you to start resistance training right away. And the reasons that we just said, if you keep adapting the one direction where you're doing the elliptical, the treadmill, and you're doing that for 1 hour straight at a certain intensity, you are going to keep spinning your circles, because the only way that you're going to keep seeing progress of any sort will be that you have to ramp up either the speed, the distance, or the length of the session. So, and as you do so, it's just you get better and better at it. Your body gets smarter and it adapts. So you do burn less calories. Think of and it's a healthy thing. Think about it. Just our bodies were meant to survive. And if you were not eating, which is what you're basically not eating, right? That's less calories, calorie deficit. And then you had to find food, and you couldn't find food for a couple of days or multiple weeks, whatever it might be, that your body downregulates the amount of calories that it's using because you're trying to survive. So you would lose fat and muscle.
Yeah.
Because you're not having the stimulus to have the muscle stay on your body. But your metabolism has to downregulate so you can survive.
Yeah.
So basically all the processes, like just the normal things of keeping your heartbeat, keeping blood flowing, the water moving, cellular structures, like all that is included in metabolism. And people don't understand.
Gotcha, yeah.
It all downregulates because you're trying to survive. So that's what it's basically happening. I'm not saying it's like this is the whole survival, there's a whole survival thing, and
what is it, like survival mode?
Yeah, it's like survival mode. But realistically, it's just that your body's adapting a certain way because you're giving it the signals to adapt it that way.
Yeah.
Whereas resistance training is literally the opposite. We were trying to make you the most inefficient with calories.
Yes.
Because if you had a lot of muscle back then, and by the way, all the shows that you watch, all these things that you see of like Vikings and not the show act literally, but overall like Vikings, all the Romans, like they were not gigantic. They were shredded.
And that's why we have the perception that they look so big, is because that makes you look bigger.
Yeah, by no means. If you're talking about total structure, they were not massive in size. Not like the half shores, not like all the Greek statues are probably the closest in relation if you were to body metrics, or probably like that. Like they were just lean, they had muscle in their frame, but it wasn't like these big bodybuilders that you see now. Like if Ronnie Coleman was back then, it's like nobody's eating 10,000 calories.
Yeah, you can't find it, you can't afford it. It's not a thing. The only guy that's maybe fat is the king.
Yeah, well, yeah, and then that comes to the whole point of the fat people or the rich. So they did it because they were rich.
Yeah,
and showing their socioeconomic status.
Exactly. So I think it's fair to say then, also kind of as a conclusion or to continue on to the next part, is that doing cardio as opposed to resistance training, when you do cardio, it makes your metabolism more efficient while doing cardio, but less efficient at rest. And then when you're doing resistance training, it makes your metabolism basically more efficient at burning calories during rest. Would that be correct?
Yes, it is. Yeah, okay. That is very correct. It's put in perspective. A research paper that came out about a year ago, if I remember correctly, was testing out there's fancy words here. Basically testing out how many calories are burned per unit of exercise.
Okay.
So they compared just like people on a treadmill for 30 minutes, same amount of time. And they compare the same amount of time spent working out, deadlifting, working up to 1 rep max and then so like the warm up was included, and 5 sets of 1. So
Gotcha.
it's about 30 minutes, really.
Yeah.
Okay, so
5 reps though total.
5 reps total, 5 sets of 1
Gotcha.
rep. So
Okay.
1 rep, 3-minute rest, 1 rep, 3-minute rest.
Yeah.
So it took about 30 minutes, and they did it 30 minutes as well. So they warmed up as well, but then 30 minutes on the treadmill. Then they warmed up, and then it was deadlifts. Okay.
So 5 seconds of lifting basically versus 30 minutes of movement.
Yeah. Can you guess? This is actually kind of interesting. Could you guess how much? Could you guess how many calories were burned per rep, and then versus the calories that were burned at? I mean, I think if I give you like arbitrary numbers, it would be like a 6.5 speed on a treadmill with no incline.
Oh man. I mean, that's actually crazy because like I feel like I know where you're going with this, but still a little mind blowing because I understand these principles, but it seems like outlandish. Each rep so it's basically 1 rep maxes, right?
5 sets of 1. That means it's above 90%. 90% and above.
Okay, 30 minutes. I'm gonna guess that it was like 25 calories per rep.
That's actually pretty close. So little detail. Basically, every rep was above 400 pounds. So these guys were were seasoned. They were intermediate.
Okay. So 35 to 40?
1
calorie.
1 calorie.
Really?
During the exercise, the measure of basically burning calories is basically you're wired up. There's like a whole face mask and how much oxygen is being deprived.
So okay, so is it basically that and then every other point in the day the calorie burn is higher? Is that the point?
That's the whole afterburn thing. Yeah. So what I'm trying to get at is when you're actually resistance training, people have this backwards. People have this.
You're not burning okay, I get what you're saying. You're not burning calories during the lifting. I thought it was gonna be something crazy where it was like because they're putting so much effort into. I was like, okay, yeah, but wow, okay,
yeah. So the whole point is that yes, if you're talking about physical, I think the concept is all incorrect. Meaning that we're so focused on the wrong data and the wrong metrics where we're every machine that you look at that's cardio based is like, how many calories did I burn? And it's always wrong. It's completely wrong. Even put your hands on the bioelectrical impedance, the little silver things that you see on the handles.
Absolutely.
It's not correct. The metrics that you do need to be actually looking at will be how much muscle am I putting on per month, per year is really a better metric of more calorie burn over time. Because the more muscle you do have, you will burn more calories at rest. The reason why I mentioned this study was goes to show you that when you do resistance training, and these guys were intermediate lifters, only burning 1 calorie per deadlift that was over 400 pounds. And that's a damn good lift for most people. And it's also 90% of their 1 rep max. So 1 calorie versus the treadmill people. Could you guess how many calories they burned?
Well, I guess that had to be like
I'll give you this. It's like a mile time of like 10, 11 minutes.
So like 300 in the moment, 200 to 300?
Right around there. It's like mid 200s. So
they're doing that then, but then the rest of the day, they're very inefficient at burning calories.
Yes, because the whole point is that your body's adapting to that. So you're getting used to that, right? Whereas the people that are doing the weight training is like, yes, afterwards there's another phenomenon called EPOC. But you don't even worry about that. The whole point is that the more muscle you have, the way you train your body is a signal that sends. So therefore, you're becoming more inefficient with energy.
Yes.
Because you have more muscle in your frame. Therefore, you have to burn more calories to maintain it.
Exactly.
Whereas the cardio is quite the opposite. But isn't that crazy though? 1 calorie per 90% 1 rep deadlifts.
Yeah, no, that is crazy. And then my other question is technically because obviously we advocate for, if you can get 10,000 steps in a day, that's what we did throughout our entire cuts. And, we could lose 100 pounds not doing any like steady state long distance cardio. Like we could easily do that. But is walking, of course, everything's like I know everything's cardio. Like if I move my arm like this, I just moved, so it's cardio, whatever. But is walking that's not considered cardio then technically, or it's just not under the umbrella of what people would perceive as cardio? Like when people hear cardio, they think, oh, I have to run on the treadmill.
I think it's because technically, okay. So technically it is cardio, but when we talk about cardio, there's different types.
Yeah, so that's the whole thing.
And basically it's at a certain point, it actually goes by the heart rate, right? So it actually goes by heart rate, and there's different zones, and then you have different levels of those zones, whatever. What I would say is anything that's in the umbrella of TD, basically it's anything that's lower, that doesn't bring your heart rate above 120 is considered just regular, just doing things. Overall. So like if you're cleaning your house, if you're mowing the lawn, like technically you're still being active, but you would not consider that as cardio. So walking actually is that. Even if you
Gotcha. Yeah.
even if you deliberately are like we do, is like we plan our walks every day at like 1 or 2 o'clock after lunch, and it's for an hour. Like that is deliberate moving. So like, could you consider it as cardio? I was like, sure, but the context that we're talking about is if you're in the like, especially like the middle intensity, like the moderate intensity steady state cardio, that's where it starts to happen. You're like, where is that, Chris? It's like, most likely if your heart rate is just generally sitting on average around 140 to 160, and you're just sitting there for a long periods of time, that's still pretty hard actually. But if you're around that range all the time and just continuously you can get better at it. You eventually go down to 120 to 140 heart beats per minute, and you continuously do that. That's where we're talking about that's where the body starts to adapt that way. And by all means, you should be walking. I just know that when we talk in context of the people that we work with, it's that they're always time pressed. So if you have the same 2 hours, it's like you should definitely be doing resistance training over the cardio if I only had those 2 hours. Big caveat here though. Big caveat. The purpose of cardio is to make sure that your resting heart rate in this regard is right around 60 beats per minute or lower. Like that is our marker to make sure that you're going to be okay overall. Like you're just a general healthy person, that you're not going to be breathing super heavy after a working set of bicep curls. Because we definitely have people, and I've worked with people that do like the most, what seems the easiest exercise, but are breathing super heavy.
Yeah, that becomes moderate to intense cardio for them. It really does, yeah.
So what we're trying to get at is if you have the choice between cardio or resistance training for 1 hour, we would do mostly resistance training, and then you would add cardio at the end. And it also depends on your heart rate. So if your heart rate at rest is 60 beats per minute or higher, then I urge you to do some sort of cardio, whether it be high intensity interval training or moderate intensity steady state. And those things could be, if you're doing high intensity, it could just be doing a quote unquote 90% as fast as you can run for even just 10 seconds. And I guarantee if you do that like 3 to 4 times, you'll probably be gassed out.
Yeah. And keyword is, you said 1 hour, right? People are going to be, I work out so hard. You're telling me I shouldn't take care of my heart health and all this stuff. And like, it's definitely not what we're saying. If one, like if, you could definitely do that. 2, if you enjoy it, you could absolutely do that too. And if you have endless hours in the week, you definitely could do that. But if you have an hour twice a week and you're just trying to look good, right? Because most people listening to this probably want to look good. And if you're just starting to listen to this, you probably don't look good yet. So if you're trying to allocate your time as good as possible, I mean, it is logical after hearing this that you would prioritize more of your time towards resistance training. And then the other thing I want to say is, when you were talking about, basically the activities that you do that burn calories versus purposely trying to just burn lots of calories in a quick span of time, you see a big difference with job occupations. You see people that sit at a desk all day and then they get fat. And you see, if they're not conscious of their diet and training and stuff like that. And then you see people who are maybe a little more blue collar, not the guy that has like a pencil in his ear and he's like, all right, make these markups, and then like tells other people what to do. But like the dudes on roofs, for example. It's like, how many times you see a fat guy working on top of a roof all day for like 12 hours straight? It's like, probably not. Right? So it's like, it really depends on what you're doing throughout the day. Maybe it's a hobby you enjoy also that is not like planned cardio, but it very much is burning lots of calories. Maybe you love taking walks through nature, going on hikes or canoeing or something. I don't know. You're a photographer that's very active. Like, all these things are burning calories though, right? So depending on like what you do and what your hobby is, what your personality is, that plays out a lot of times as well into how many calories you're burning, and as a result, what your body fat ends up being.
Yeah, I think the new wave is pickleball. That's what everybody's doing right now to burn some sort of calories. Or they get I mean, then you have all these guys that are trying to do zone 2 cardio, which is a specific type of cardio. But basically, they're just on recumbent bikes, just kicking their feet, keeping their heart rate at a certain point for 4 minutes straight, and then relaxing. Like, that's what they do at work. That's what they're doing at work, like, or while they're working from home.
Well, I guess it's better than doing absolutely nothing. Imagine if they had like they should just have weights under their desk. Like, if you're working from home, like the setup your dad has downstairs is pretty sweet.
Oh, he just goes in between sets. Yeah, but that's like that's the in this case is my father also works like he's so hands off.
Yeah.
Because he's already built the system. Whereas like it just really depends on the job and the person.
I'm saying if you had to choose between zone 2 cardio, like in the middle of like all right, like Zoom call ends, I got 3 minutes till the next one, zone 2 cardio, or like you could pump out a few sets of bicep curls.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I'm just saying it's like I think everybody's different. I know people that work from home. It's like we actually just talked about this, or at least in my videos, but that I do recommend under the desk treadmill if you're really stuck behind your desk all the time.
Yeah.
And this also depends if you're on meetings all the time, if your camera's always on, or if you're really working to the point where like every minute you're spent behind that desk.
Yeah, well then you're not burning anything.
Yeah, so it's like I really recommend either basically like a under the desk bike, or at least a setup where the desk comes over the bike.
And there's that slow walking treadmill too, you were saying, right?
Yeah, there's amazing slow walking treadmill. There's definitely some maintenance you do have to do with it. So just make sure you have to grease the grease some things and put the oil back in, whatever. But trust me, those my clients that did do that and continuously did that eventually became my best clients, because that was their biggest confinement to them losing weight overall, was that they had less than 2,000 steps a day
and not moving.
And then a person that doesn't have 2,000 steps, and then also coming to the gym, they came to the gym, but like during the rest of the day, it's like less than 2,000 steps. You come to the gym, it's like that person that's mid 30s is probably that, like on average. If I give you like a regular sized male, which is like in the US is like technically 5'9", 5'10" at average, like 185, but they're overweight now. So let's say 200.
Yeah.
It's like a 200-pound male. And then like that person is probably only burning like 2,000 calories a day. And that's like,
wow.
And that's like being generous.
You're right. And then here's the crazy part. You talked about the example of that average demographic, they're getting 2,000 steps a day. If you got 10,000 steps a day, let's just say 12,000, because I'm going to make the numbers easy and it's going to make a lot of sense. Let's say that walking 2,000 steps a day, they are maintaining their body weight. They're not going up and down based on their diet. And then they get 12,000 steps a day. That's 10,000 more. It's probably about 500 more calories they're burning on the day. So if you kept every other variable consistent, chances are that's enough to lose 1 pound a week, which is crazy to think about. That alone would be enough to lose 1 pound a week without doing anything to change their diet.
Yeah, and so to be fair though, so somebody that's not doing anything and then doing
that's difficult. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying numbers wise, like think about that.
Yeah, so if you're doing under the desk treadmill and a slow pace enough where you're still able to talk or type behind that desk at a 1 mile an hour pace, that would probably be like a total of 2 to 3 hours. So it takes a long time.
Yeah.
But the whole point is that you're moving. Like,
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Whereas, if you're that's where it's like you have a slow period. It's like you can try to go outside. Obviously, if it's in the wintertime,
or call you could take outside, something like that.
Yeah, like if that's like, it's just like I said, it just pertains to the job. So and the person that's working. So if you're really tired, it's like this is what I recommend. It's like just go at a 1 mile an hour pace, and you're just basically be walking the entire X amount of time, like maybe for like 30 minutes at a time, 4 or 5 times. But that's what we recommend if it's not just pure cardiovascular training. And I would say is if you just enjoy cardio, by all means, still do it. Now, if you're trying for an intent, and the intent is to look better overall, there's a reason why it's called bodybuilders, right? These guys obviously are doing everything on the one end of the spectrum to shape and sculpt their body a certain way. So there must be something to that to say, okay, if I want to shape my body, I'm going to try to build my body and look a certain way. It's like we probably should look at the best people who do that for a living. It's bodybuilding. We're not going to be like that. We're not ever going to look like that unless you have the great genetics and a great protocol. But they probably have a good idea of why they look that way. So why not try to get the best of what they're doing and just try to get it down to what we can do within our time frame, which is most of us, it's like anywhere between 2 to 5 hours a week. That you're able to train. Whereas cardio, if you do the same thing, it's like you look at anybody who does long distance running, they look like sticks.
Hey guys, if you're enjoying the podcast so far, all we ask you to do is subscribe so you can get more value from this, or share it with a friend who you think could benefit from this. The rest of the episode, we're going to talk about weird stories and weird people in the gym. Let's get into it. Even start talking about that in the sense that it is the everyday of going to the gym. Every day, you see the crazy people that you probably always see. And then every once in a while, there's something that's just even more crazier that happened. And you're like, oh, that's just Jimmy. He's crazy.
Yeah.
And that's kind of it. But to think about it, I would say first story that comes to mind, we'll probably just rattle off some stories to each other. I'll probably say one. You'll get an idea. But one I was just thinking about, I think I told you guys a few weeks ago, but we had the sauna, and you're not supposed to, like in the electric ones, supposed to put the water in it or whatever, like incense, water.
Mhm.
There was this guy who just in a towel, like no clothes, in a towel, walked out of the men's locker room with just his wet feet, left a wet feet trail, walked all the way up the stairs to the second floor, refilled a giant gallon of water, walked back down with his wet ass feet, and then went into the thing and put it like in the electric sauna. And then the whole fire department had to come. The whole thing was steaming.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I was like, what is going on?
What a piece of shit.
I know. So that's just one of them. I'm sure I'll think of more as time goes on. But some people at the gym, they could just, like, why is it? Like, what is it about the gym specifically? Because you think, okay, like these are some of the most healthiest people that are go-getters because they're at least taking care of their body. Why are they so weird? Is it that the people that go to the gym are weird, or is the gym just exposing the weirdness in humanity?
I think it also depends on the price point of the membership because
That's fair. Yeah.
because basically the lower I've gone. So like you go to in the Northeast we have Retro Fitness, but everywhere else it's like Planet Fitness or Crunch, regular. Like there's different levels of Crunch, but like the regular Crunch is and then you have basically like there's levels to it. So if you go like the first level, like the retros, the base Crunch,
Probably LA Fitness, right?
base LA Fitnesses, since it's such low membership dues, that
Yeah.
they just don't care. You attract a certain amount of people who just have also the habits of
Low-income people. Probably.
low income people. Yeah,
Yeah, sorry, guys.
yeah. It's I wouldn't say that if I didn't work at other gyms and be around basically so many different people, but
Totally.
it really is a massive difference. All the low tier gyms that have low monthly dues, all just attract the weirdest people because they for example, there's no towel service, there's no stuff like that, but they'll have people leaving the weights everywhere, and
Well, that's bad. Yeah.
yeah, leaving the like basic stuff like leaving weights everywhere, nothing's wiped, the equipment's not there.
Well, and also, sorry, I cut you off, but is the employees are also representative of the people there. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? A lot of times. I'm not saying like you, when you worked there, you were just as bad as the other people. I'm just saying like that's the whole reason you ascended to another place is because you didn't fit the category of probably the trainers in these places.
Yeah, I guess it's twofold. It's the membership dues are so low, so that means the margins are very low, which means they're probably not paying you're not going to attract good talent or keep them around that long. So it's like a perpetuating cycle, and then when a good talent does come in, they probably go to the next tier of gyms up. But the whole point is everybody comes in and they think it's like, oh, it's going to be this like magical place that's amazing, but realistically it's like you forget the little details about any place with service. For example, is like the bathrooms.
Yeah.
Right. No matter where, no matter what tier, you'll still have an old guy just swinging everything around.
Oh yeah. No matter what tier, I feel like that's the norm. If I didn't see an old dude's big cock, I'd probably be confused. I'd be like, "What's going on? Did something change overnight?"
Yeah, it happens to me still to this day. I don't even work in the gym. So imagine when I used to work at the gym, it'd be like almost every otother hour. Now it's just like one time I go to the gym, it's always guys. It's also funny because it's like one of my friend's parents.
Oh yeah,
yeah, one of my friend's dads. So, and I'm always like, why? I always text her, and I'm like, why is your dad always just like whipping everything around? Is he not
yeah. Wow.
like,
Imagine getting a text as that girl like, I just saw your dad's penis.
yeah, I told her this 4 years ago.
Like, tell your dad. Wow. Yeah. And usually it's like the old people. They're always packing heat, man.
Well, it's also they don't care, and then also they really just don't care, and then next thing you know, they just somehow always packing heat.
Yeah. Somehow. I don't know, man. It's something about our generation. You know, I don't know what it is, but these people they're so strange. I'm trying to think like that's the thing. Like I said in the beginning, it's so hard because it's almost like if I told you, you know, name a soccer team and it's like there's 10,000 of, let's say you're a really big soccer fan. It's like there's 10,000 soccer teams. So you're like, oh, which one do I say? And then you have like analysis by paralysis. You can't even come up with one. but you know like a million of them. I feel like there's that because there's so many bizarre stories. I mean, you're right. It depends on the gym that you're at. I started off at LA Fitness I felt like it was the Bermuda Triangle of the world. Just such bizarre people that came in there. It was, I mean, the main demographic of the first gym there that I was at, it was a lot more lower income people that went there, even though it wasn't in a lower income town because it was probably on the border and right near off the parkway. So there's all types of people going there that could afford that place. And I would just say that it was a bunch of crazy dudes and then a bunch of ladies with butt lifts that thought they were awesome and they just weren't. And that was like 70% of the gym population. That was probably my experience there. And then I had worked out at 24 Hour Fitness where I had first met you. I would say that place was pretty solid. Of course, there's so many weird people everywhere at gyms, but I would say that place was pretty solid. And then I worked out at a middle tier crunch, so like a step below where you were. And because of the location, what town it was in, you had anyone from rich people that were like deca millionaires, and then you had your rich Jewish people, but then you also had anyone and everyone else under that, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Yes, I'm saying that Jews are at the top of the hierarchy, guys. That's exactly what I'm saying. So positive racism. But yeah, I mean, you had anyone and everyone. So like you had basically every demographic mixing with each other. So, like you had people that came speak English, they only speak Spanish. It's just, I don't know, it was bizarre. Like I never was at a place that had that much mixture. I don't know if you've been.
I would say is okay. Working at basically a more the highest monthly dues gyms. So basically gyms that are $100 or more per month. There is a massive culture shift because everybody knows it's that expensive. So it's people just understand that there's certain courtesies and rules and respect that is followed, and we all inherently know about that. Also, the employees will enforce that way more.
Yeah,
because we know it's expensive to be there, and then as be a trainer or a manager there, it's just that you want to uphold the culture, and it's definitely more reinforced versus if you go to some place that's like, and to be fair, $50 a month is I still had a great experience working at places that were at that level.
Well, and if you lose your job, it's a bigger deal. It's like if you're working at a Crunch Signature, you lose your job, it's like, oh, that's a lot of money. If you lose your job at, a Crunch in the middle of nowhere at the base tier, not that big of a deal. Just go to like the next one.
Yeah, and go to like Anytime Fitness anywhere in the country, you literally make the same amount of money. Yeah, so it definitely is different by the monthly dues. But all I would say is even at the highest tiers, it's still like the same pettiness. It's like, yeah, people don't put the weights away, they don't wipe down their equipment, whatever. Like that's the normal stuff.
Yeah.
But you definitely would not see the guys who are like, for example, pissing and shitting outside of the toilet just because they can. Like
why, you've been to a gym where that happens?
Oh, all the time.
Really?
Yeah, every single one. One below $50 a month, it's like the entire bathroom's trashed every single time.
Wow.
And I'm in New Jersey.
Well, that's because we had the greatest cleaner ever at mine then. We had this guy, Miguel. Actually, that's really his name. Shout out to Miguel. He's the greatest of all time. And he worked at the 24 right after you left. Gotcha. And this guy was like the hardest worker of all time. He got paid like $15 an hour. He was like 72 years old, Hispanic guy. And he was like, I come to this country, nothing. He's like, I make all the money. I have 4 jobs. He's like, I have a landscaping business. I clean on the side for my family. I do this gym and I do this gym. And he's like, I don't know why they hire any other employees. Like, I've got the whole thing myself. People are touching the windows. Those are my windows. What are they doing? And the guy he had like a $50,000 truck. He paid for it in cash. He just worked his ass off. Like, if there's the definition of hard work pays off, it was this guy. Yeah. He's 70 years old, is youthful as a 20-year-old working, had more pride than anyone else in the job that he did, but he's the greatest cleaner of all time. So our gym was always spotless no matter what. Like you could have had the homeless people from San Francisco take 60 shits in our gym and this guy would have cleaned it up in 10 minutes.
Yeah, we didn't have that. It's not the gyms that I even worked at. It was just like gyms that I visited or either visited, managed, had to do a training there for other trainers. But every time I visited a gym, it was like the easy stuff. But yes, like I'll name someone on top of my head before I get into a story or two. But the biggest ones were like, yes, on both men and women's, but women's was more just messy every time I hear the stories. On the men's side, it was definitely pissing and shitting all over the floor, everywhere. Besides the normal guys hanging with their dongs out, it's mostly old men above 70.
Yeah.
But the biggest ones are definitely like the like people bringing their music in a boombox.
Oh yeah, the boom boxers. Yeah.
Yeah. So like this is like this is like the lower tier
Yeah.
gyms. So like they're bringing the boombox around, and the gym already blasts music. Hence why people enjoy going to the gym a lot.
Yeah, just wear headphones, bro.
Yeah. So they usually come in like so like you have the boomboxers, you have the grade schoolers. So whether it's middle school, whether it's high school, and they come in a packed. And nowadays it's just that now they're a walking meme, which is the Crocs, the the earrings with the broccoli looking hair, and then
pajamas,
and then pajama pants. Right, that's but that usually doesn't happen in higher tier places because they don't afford it because their parents aren't going to pay for it. Let's see.
Thank God.
Yeah, no shot. We had nobody wear pajama pants at in the cities, for the most part.
You're like I did, but that was an exception.
Oh yeah, imagine. No, if I wear pajamas to work, oh my God, that'd be crazy.
Yeah, it would be.
Basically there's like some archetypes, but I think those are the ones that kind of like come out and stick out in my head right away. Obviously, you have the people who come in and they just try. You have the show offs. So people who like come in thinking they're like hot shit, so they walk around with their shoulders out like wider than
they actually like imaginary lat syndrome.
Yeah, imaginary lat syndrome, and then it's also like they just think they know everything. So they have those kinds of people who talk like basically they try to do a trainer's job even though they're not a trainer. So you have people who are like super super confident, more cocky more than anything else about what they think they know, and then they just try to approach everybody that talks or that lifts in the gym saying like, hey, you're doing that wrong, or hey, you're doing this right.
Yeah.
So they basically poach mid workout.
Yeah.
Well, those I would say are the biggest ones, and then obviously like, you have individual stories.
Yeah, and every gym has their own characters. It's like a TV show. You know, like there's for some reason you could like let's say you went at 8 a.m. It's like there's some people that are just they will always be there forever. Like as long as the gym doesn't close down, like at that exact time, they will be there. But then it gets even weirder because you're like, okay, it's the same cast, same crew at 8 o'clock in the morning. Surely if one day I miss and I'm there at 3 p.m., those same people aren't going to be there. And then somehow they're there magically. It's like these people, like there was one guy, he would show up at 5 a.m. when it opened and he'd leave at like 12 o'clock. And I'm like, what is this guy doing? It's like he wasn't getting any more jacked, but like somehow he was always working out.
Oh yeah.
And like there's just such characters, you know, and the old people are the greatest, I think, because their personalities are just wild.
Yeah,
you know,
they don't care anymore.
They just don't give a fuck. They talk about whatever. They're just like cursing. They're, you know, some of them maybe mildly racist. It's legendary.
Yeah, they're still my favorite. They're definitely one of my favorite demographics to work with. It's also vastly different when you train them, but in terms of like the conversations that we had, it was always about all the wars, the politics, the mentality, psychology behind everything, and it is vastly different. They just have a whole different perspective on life. But also to their point, they always talked about what happened, what happened that influenced what's happening now. And then of course every single one of them would always talk about, you know, how it's, you know, this demographic or this demographic.
Yeah, that's like right in front of their face though. Like that's the funny part. Is it's like they're talking about exactly what you just said, and there's like some girl in the mirror posing with her ass, some dude with a tripod like getting mad someone's walking into it wearing pajamas, like all at the same time as like this is going on.
Yeah,
it's such a weird contrast.
Yeah, but it's funny because like you think it's like we're so focused on their training. Realistically, it's just we're just having a conversation with them, and then they're just doing some basic, very, very, very basic movements.
Yeah,
that's like half. That was like half the time of me spending time with older, mostly men, but I did have women too.
Well, in this area, I don't know about Hoboken, but in this area in general, it's like always the older Italian guys. You know, is that what I would get in 24-hour fitness, Springfield? I don't know if I say whatever around the area we're at, but yeah, I mean those. Usually the gyms I would go to in this area of New Jersey, like the older people in the morning are always like old school Italian people. They like grew up in Brooklyn or whatever it is. They've seen some stuff. Like I have one guy, I love this guy. He was awesome when I worked at Crunch, and he was there every single morning. And he would tell me like these, like I don't know if he was in the mob, but he would like tell me these crazy stories that made me think he was like the main character in Goodfellas. And he'd be like, "Yo, you want to know how I met my wife?" And I was like, "How?" And he's like, "Well, you know, we were what was so he's like she was dating this guy. And I fucking hated this guy, but I really liked my wife. So I went up to her and he was standing there and they were about to like dock on a boat. And he's like, you know, I start hitting on her and he's like, "I don't think you want to do that. Like we should take this outside." And he was like, "But I pulled the fucking gun on him." And he's like, I don't think you want to mess with me. And he's like, from that point on, that girl became my wife. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, he definitely told the story a lot better than I just did. But I was like, wow, what a cool story. Like, yeah, and this guy would always come up with something crazier the next time. I was like, I don't even know this guy's telling the truth anymore. He told me that he told me this bachelor party was like at a gym, and like he's like, yeah, there was like naked chicks all over the benches. Like, I was like, all right, cool, dude. Guy was legendary.
Dude, there's so many. I think the biggest ones that remain in my head is because it was more recent in the last few years, and I think the biggest one was that gyms are just it's just filled with hormones, and people don't understand. No matter what age, it's just obviously the younger age are definitely doing it more. But no matter what age, I've seen it all, man. It's you have the members banging each other, you have all the employees banging each other.
That's how I met my girlfriend.
There you go. Like everybody in there is just banging each other. Everybody's sharing fluids everywhere. I'm not even kidding.
Yeah.
You had it. I just remember working at. I'm not even gonna say it now because I don't expose them. But I just wouldn't be fair. It happened in multiple gyms. Just this one particularly, I remember. I just remember walking in one day and walking to the janitorial closets, and then found at least 3 condoms and wrappers.
Wow, in the closet.
In the guard, where basically
Bless you.
Yeah. Where he basically pulled all the garbage, getting ready to take it outside, and he's like, oh, the guy's also Spanish speaking, and I was like looking at this, I was like, what's that? And he was speaking Spanish, translated it, and he's like, yeah, I found 3 of them. I found 2 of them in the employee room, and then I found 1 also in the bathroom.
Oh wow!
I guess he was dumping it out, and obviously he was just left on the top because he was like surprised as well. Then I'm like thinking about my employee or
was that the employee that got fired? Did those employees get fired?
No.
Oh, this is another. So I'm thinking of someone else that worked at the same chain that you did.
No.
Okay.
No. Yeah, this is a different time. I mean,
so I guess it's that common then. Like,
no, it's super common. And then the ones that do get caught, generally speaking, do get caught. It's actually not even that. Like, technically, you're not supposed to obviously fornicate in at work, duh. but like in terms of relationships at work, they're supposed to be that you're not supposed to be dating at the same place for the most part. And then it's if you do, you go talk to HR and then you talk about it. You sign something saying that it's not going to affect your work and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then if it's a manager to employee, then it's most of the time it's supposed to be that you're supposed to be sent out somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like it's usually the employey to continue dating. But of course it never happens. That never happens.
No,
anywhere.
gyms are like the most we don't give a fuck about what everyone else does rules ever. Just like whatever goes as long as they think they're doing a good job.
Yeah, we have one person in HR department for the whole Northeast region.
Yeah, so
for every gym I've ever worked at.
Yeah, then within each franchise, it's like, what is HR? HR is like whoever says they're HR. They're like, I'm HR. And then they're not. Like, they don't do anything.
Yeah, there's no HR department. So any legal people watching this.
But it's actually, if you want to take over.
You'll make a lot of money. But
it's actually awesome because of that. Because you don't have to go through like training where it's like, don't rape gym members. It's like, oh, okay, I thought I was able to do that, but now I know. Thank you for telling me.
They do have very extensive harassment training of all sorts of HR trainings in their videos. But like, it's just a video. It's like an hour and a half long, and all you do is just sit there and just click buttons. Like that's what most people do. But I would say is that the most common. I think the most common and bizarre thing that still blew my mind was everybody was just banging each other. That was definitely
still blows your mind.
That was the biggest thing because it's not the fact of them banging each other. It's the combination. It's like an older dude with a younger woman.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's a younger guy, younger. Like it's like different sizes, different races, different different socioeconomic backgrounds.
It's like half Thor Bjornsson with Simone Biles.
Yeah. It was like the weirdest combinations. Now when you found out, you're like, okay. Like, how did that even? Yeah,
you're like, I might as well not even. Like, I got no chance then. Like,
how is it? Like, how is it? Like, this 70-year-old Joe Schmo just like was sleeping with this like 37 divorce, black divorcee.
Yeah, well, that's the strat right there. That's pretty smart. I would say these guys got so much experience the last 70 years in the gym that they're like, I know exactly what to do.
Well, I think that's more of the fact that why in the gym? Like, you have so many other places to take
I don't know. I feel like, though, all right, to be fair, though, I feel like if I was a 70-year-old Joe Schmo, like, I think I would hit the gym, too. I would just like TRT it up or like just look roided.
No, he was fat. He was fat.
Oh, he was fat.
Yeah, it was like a random.
I don't know.
It wasn't like a RFK.
I think, you know why? Because I think like the gym, there's a lot of okay, so you gave the archetype of a divorced 37-year-old female. She, maybe she needs that validation for whatever reason. That guy.
Yeah, I'm just saying I did see some weird combinations.
I think that's why I stopped enjoying going to the gym and having my own gym. Is like that being one of the reasons. Not like, oh man, I can't stand it. Everyone's just banging each other. I can't go to the gym anymore. But like the kind of the hormonal competition. There's nothing wrong with that, by the way. If you're single, go to the gym, be good at it, and your testosterone will probably just go up just from going to the gym. But on the other side, like having a girlfriend and being like super like all or nothing person, if I'm at the gym, I become very competitive right away. I'm like, man, that guy thinks he's the strongest. I'm the fucking strongest. Like he thinks he's the most aesthetic. I am. Like, motherfucker. And then like you get like the epic EDM music going, you become like a lunatic in like overnight. So yeah, I'd much rather prefer working out at home and just like not dealing with that, because I think that sometimes I'd rather not put myself in an environment where I know it's easy for me to become competitive and play a stupid game. So I enjoy working out at home. Like I get very easily distracted.
No, I get that.
I wish I didn't. I wish I could say it was good like that. I feel like that's my biggest vice. I wish I could say that I was good enough to be able to, walk past like 600 naked Swedish models and be like Stone Cold Killer. Just like, walking through. But
yeah,
like,
basically get the environment out.
Yeah, so not there yet. I'm working at it in VR. I've been studying and just kidding.
I think so. Off that, I would say, as you would have, I think you would have thrived working out in a city, in a gym in a city. And it's because all the guys that were in the city, especially the one I was working at,
yeah,
they were like the average. It was like the average guy was 15% body fat, solid upper body frame, no legs. Nobody has average.
No,
like no average has good legs anywhere.
Like, look at me, right?
Even my legs are smaller now, but
Chris's legs are the biggest legs in the world. He's lying.
But every guy there had like a solid baseline of a upper body, at least physique wise, upper body physique. And then strength. I mean, that means generally also the strength of at least pressing movements are pretty good. But it's also the fact that if you hung around like the trainers, the guys that we hung out with, it's like all these guys on average were pulling over 400-pound deadlifts for reps. It doesn't matter what stance.
That's pretty damn good average.
Average, yeah. Squats were over 315 average, right? Bench presses were over 225, 4 reps average. So like it's like that was like just the general base, right? And then then it's like the whole point is that you would probably also conform to like the people, like the looks that they had. Girls, more so the girls. The girls were always just like super the same. They were actually copy paste print.
Yeah,
it's kind of
I think I'd thrive, but also be a lunatic at the same time. Well, like I always say, like if I was in the wrong environment, like I could either basically right or wrong environment. Like I could either be Jordan Belfort or I could be a pastor. Like there's no middle. I don't think.
In this case, yeah. Well, in this case, it would have been like a Jack.
Pastor.
It would have been Jack Jordan Belfort, because it was just like everybody was. It was basically just like work super hard, work out super hard, party even harder, and that's kind of like the rotation of the environment. But that's kind of how it was, because like you're in the middle, in the height of it.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm too extreme for that, because then I'll be like, well, this is the new environment. Well, I got to be the best at it. I'm too crazy. So
people also don't think about the environment that they're around, and especially the local gym that you go to. So if you're like newer going to the gym and you walk into your local gym and you seem scared, when you look around, if the average itself is like regular overweight people, like that's the normal, right?
Yeah.
I just spoke about is like a gym that's like a 1% in the entire U.S., where it's like it was actually the weird thing to see an overweight person, and by overweight I really mean like a gut hanging over.
And you start off that way, and they're so much more likely to, like you said, almost conform to the looks of everyone else and achieve that result, because it's their perception of what they believe is possible. Oh, I see everyone around me could do it. I could do it too. If you're going to a gym and everyone around you is fat, you're like, I don't know if I could do it too, because everyone's still fat around me. So it's easier to change your environment than it is to change yourself. And I think that's one of the biggest considerations. But chances are, if you're going to the gym in general, there is going to be a lot of people who you see that started off in your position and that will make you believe that you could achieve the same thing. So just taking that first step is probably the hardest thing for most people, is day one in the gym. And after a few days, once you could solidify that you are going to continuously go, that I think that's the game. And then once you're consistent after that, I mean, your life will forever be better, and you'll thank yourself that you did that.
It definitely changes. It also definitely just changes your mood, your feel of the gym. Like coming from like working out in a gym in the city, it definitely there definitely was it was a lot more fun. Basically, like everybody was also very fit, so like there was like friendly competition of sorts. So like to be fair, like I wasn't like super like
any fights.
I think not in the not in the city gyms.
Gotcha.
Plenty of fights in every other gym I ever worked at,
Yeah.
like multiple times, in like a span of like a couple months every single time. But in the city, no, there's too much more to lose. Most of these people have white collar jobs that pay over $150,000 a year. So it was like if they got in trouble with the police there, it was like it would definitely bleed into their lives. And
Yeah.
it was like and they were younger too. So like yes, they wanted to fight. It was like they wanted to fight, and then they realized like their jobs were on the line, or like if they got caught with a black eye. And especially these guys were pretty big.
Yeah.
And
They just say they just got jumped, like make something up, you know? Just be like, I got jumped from some guy who came from behind a bush, some homeless guy.
Oh yeah, but it would always be like that. And then the people that actually did fight were always the commoners, or the people that are in assisted living, and
Gotcha.
then they couldn't afford it there, and they were paying like $300 a month because like that's just how it was. They just were stipend and then rolled over from 1910. The families were,
Yeah.
and then they would start fights purposely on the streets.
Dang.
And then like and stuff like that. But in terms of gyms, like no, they were always tough guys that always walk around with their shoulders out. But then when something actually happened, they
Shoulders
did
in.
they would actually go like try to get really close, and then they both parties would realize that their jobs were on, like basically it's like their jobs were on the line. A lot of people like worked upstairs. A lot of people worked
Gotcha.
like in
Yeah.
buildings literally right across. So it's like they would actually start questioning things, and obviously you don't want to be the person that's like getting into a fight at the gym.
Yeah, definitely.
But working out in a gym now, like especially in the middle of suburbia, yeah, it's not like there's no. It's actually quite the opposite. It's actually like working out in that gym. Like people understand different gyms have different like just environments completely. It's like
Yeah.
working in the two gyms prior to where I work out now. There were definitely more people that were more competitive, that were definitely more driven, and they weren't even numbers based. They just enjoyed competition and just trying to lift up each other more. So it's just a continuous getting better. And now I work at a gym, and
It's not the same.
Everybody, oh no, I have like the fake toilet roll goggles on now. I literally don't even look up anymore. I literally don't even look.
It's nothing good to see anymore, nothing epic.
Well, yeah, it doesn't even have to be epic. It was just it was so bad. It was like basically everybody's doing like the wrong things, and it's
Yeah.
like this place can be completely turned around. But like, yes, the average person doesn't even like deadlift over 135. Like,
Yeah, it's rough. It's rough.
so and then all the kids, I mean, like under 20, basically under 21, are just basically doing bicep curls and taking up all the cable machines. So it's like
Yeah,
it
they're
went
like,
from
sex, and then they can't even.
yeah, it's just a whole different game. It went
Yeah.
from like basically everybody trying to be like everybody's still working out upper body ass dudes, but they will still be like lifting some decent weights.
Yeah,
And now they're just in the mirror recording themselves.
that's how it goes. I started the trend. No, I'm just kidding. So if you guys got value from this episode and want to continue to get value, subscribe to this podcast and follow us at our Instagram handles. Mine is at Benji_Tucker19.
And at Coach_Chris Lee.
Till next time.